What I'm about to show you is a small clip from a training that I did recently, and at the end of the video I'm going to come back to you because if you'd like to actually participate in a full 4-hour free training that we are currently offering, then I'll give you the details about that at the end of this video. And then what we'll do is we'll look at now for some land, and we have 3 different techniques in which we do that. So we have 3 areas we call maps, boots on the ground, and hidden gems. So we'll just have a look at these separately. So this would be a simple small site, one's plot. Now I suspect actually this one here was originally in this title plan because this seems to be a separate title plan. At least that's what I thought. I actually had a look at it further today just before coming on here, and this has actually been what I discovered. This actually did have planning permission on back to 2005. And when I did a Google Street View, it currently has got no building on it. So I'm not really quite sure what the story is there. So this has it has its own title already. It seems to me like that's a building plot. So that would be easy for like one house. It looks like that this house is actually infringing on there, but I would certainly think that there's a deal to be done there. We could actually give them more space here, and we could take maybe even some of the garden ground at the back there because there'd be certainly enough to do that, and we might just have like a driveway up here and have a house there, very similar to what they've done over here. So it's like the precedent has obviously been set there. This would be the existing houses, and somebody has built in the back there. So that would be, to me, would look like a viable proposition. But if we want economies of scale, then we're going to be looking for larger sites. So a site like this would make sense. This is actually classified as agricultural, but I think in this situation it looks like there's been uh, some sort of activity here before. I suspect it's probably been some sort of like either industrial or agricultural buildings. So I would imagine that there's the possibility of actually building within that site there. So that's the sort of thing that we would be looking for when we use maps. But it's not always the case that you can actually see um, by looking at maps every opportunity. So that's why we have a second phase that we call. We'll get back to the video in just a moment. If you're really serious about creating a property development business, then I would suggest that the next logical step for you would be to get a copy of my book, You a Property Developer. Simply go to the website of the same name, youapropertydeveloper.com. I'm going to cover the cost of the book. All I'm going to ask is that you contribute to the cost of the postage and packaging. Head over to youapropertydeveloper.com and pick up a copy now. Boots on the ground, and this is where you physically go out and have a look. Now, I don't know if you remember from the picture I just showed you a minute ago, we had this lane down here, but what actually I found by walking up there, that there was an area here which would certainly take probably some buildings, probably a small block of flats, actually, probably about 4 flats in there. So something that wouldn't necessarily be shown on maps, or might be shown on maps, but it could have had at one point an existing building on there. This here was, if you looked on maps, this actually did have a building on here, and it was a former cinema. But when you actually got out, boots on the ground, you could actually see that it had been cleared at some point. And again, this did actually have planning at one stage, but was never developed. It was planning for 11 flats. So I'm not entirely sure why this didn't go ahead. I suspect it's in an area of low, where the economy is quite low, and it may have been that it just wasn't a viable proposition. It may be some contamination on this ground. I'm not really quite sure. It's not something that I've certainly investigated. And then you've got some sites that are just, that somebody started and then they've just become derelict sites. Occasionally you will find that where somebody has started it and for some reason, maybe they went into bankruptcy, they ran out of money. That's quite common, particularly with self-builds, because they don't know how to cost the thing out properly. They often pay far too much for the sites. They underestimate the cost of the buildings, and what I've found is a lot of architects don't actually have a clue how much it costs to build. They tend to over design because they're building, they want to design something of beauty, and it just doesn't stack up. And of course, they're not the ones that are going to foot the bill. So you just have to be very careful. And then we have what we call hidden gems, and we have a total of actually technically 50 different ways that you can find sites. I would say realistically there are 8 really good ones, and then these others will occasionally pop up some way of doing of finding sites. But that tends to be what we do. This is actually how I found my first site. As I said earlier, I went into a builder's merchant, not this builder's merchant, but I went into a builder's merchants, and that's how I was able to find the site. But people in the trade will often know. In fact, many a time I've had people tell me about sites that they've heard about, that some have been interested in developing themselves, but some just because they've been sort of clued into the grapevine, so they know of these places. Not all of them necessarily work out, but nevertheless, it is another source of finding sites. This is actually Church of England land for sale. Actually, all the churches in the 4 countries of the UK, they have property, and they do actually have websites that you can go on to, and they will often have properties up for sale. Not just churches; they have like ex-manses, they have land that they have in their ownership. So there is an opportunity there sometimes to pick up something from them. The importance of all of this is that you need to build a land pipeline, because what you want to do is you want to come out of one project and move on to another. You don't want to complete one project and then start the process over again, because you're going to have real sort of gaps in your cash flow. So by having one to move on to the next. And the big thing that people often worry about, and I'll talk about this in a moment, is that they won't necessarily have enough cash to be able to be looking for a second site when they've just got the first site. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we have a free training that we're now offering. This is actually the training that we used to do as a one-day event, and we've decided to bring it online because we have difficulty getting people to travel across the country for just a one-day event, and so therefore, at the request of many of people who are interested in this program, we've now moved it online. However, we are restricting it to 10 people, and the reason for that is because we are actually going to find land in your particular area, so we'd make it very much personalized. This is not a recorded event. It's personalized to each of the delegates that are going to be on that, and for that reason, because it's got the added value, although it's free, we do ask that you pay a £99 deposit. And what we do require is that you attend right from the beginning to the end, that you have your cameras on so that we have active participation. So what we're trying to do is to create the same event online that we would have done in person. So we have that interaction, there's plenty of time for questions and answers, and we basically follow the format of first finding land. How do you find land? How do you evaluate land? And then we go on to talk about how do you fund those developments. So if this interests you, then head over to propertydevelopmentuk.com. That's propertydevelopmentuk.com, and you will find the next available date. You will find the details of what's included in the program and the ability to be able to sign up. If you decide to join us, then I look forward to meeting you online. Take care, and thank you for watching.